Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing our items overview series for Total War 3 Kingdoms, as we'll be taking a look at all the accessories available in the game. Now this is a massive undertaking, as there are a total of 92 accessories in the game right now, but fortunately for us, 11 of these items are bows, which we have already covered in a previous episode, and since bows are really weapons disguised as accessories, we will not be covering them today. So if you're curious about bows and you haven't seen our previous episode, definitely go check that one out. And that still leaves us with 81 items for us to conduct a thorough overview of. But as you can see here on the tier list right now, they are not actually 81 items. They are actually only 52 items, as there are quite a few items that are accessories that just provides a basic amount of stat boost, such as the clay, stone, iron, wooden, and jade item. So we have removed those from the final tier list, but worry not, we'll still be going over them in the overview portion of the video. So as with all our item overview videos, we will start once again with the overview itself before concluding this episode with the final tier list. So let's get started with all the clay accessories. Now in the game Total War 3 Kingdoms, there are accessories that are classified by their material, and each material actually represents one of the stat categories, or at least for the most part, they correlate with one of the stats. And as you can see here, the clay material correlate with the authority stat, as we have the common clay axe, clay pig, clay rat, and clay warrior. And they each provide 4 points of authority and 4 points of satisfaction. Now of these 4 items, the clay warrior does have a set bonus. We are not really going to talk about the set bonus very much because these will all be repeats of our previous episodes, since each item set requires 2 item types, and since the accessories is the last item type we're covering in our item overview, we have already talked about all these sets in previous episodes. So for example here, the clay warrior can be combined with the foreman, which is a follower item, to have the expert of the barracks, which will give us 25% construction cost discount for military if you have a ministered commandery. So we already talked about this when we introduced the foreman, so we'll just briefly mention it and continue on. And continuing on, we have the better clay items, the refined versions. You have the cup, the ox, the dog, and the fish. And all these will provide 6 points of authority and 6 satisfaction. And that's going to be a common trend. 4 points for common, 6 points for refined. If you have numbers that are bigger or smaller than this, then your item is not as good or better, or perhaps they have some other stat that make up for it. And of these items, we have the clay cup and clay ox being partners with the foreman again, for expert of the academies, discount for blue buildings, and expert of the farms, discount for green buildings. And then we have the clay dog, which can be partnered up with the diviner item, which is this silver follower item that can give you the boost of 5% income from all sources faction wide. This is actually decent, but we won't be talking too much about this one. But overall, if you have a leadership bonus and the item stat is authority, it works quite nicely since authority will give a satisfaction. So this is a well-designed set bonus. Then we conclude the clay, which maxes out at the refined level, and we move on to stone accessories. And stone accessories are correlated with the instinct stat. As you can see, stone archers are only a common one with 4 points, and then the axe, the horse, the pig, all 6 points of instinct, 6 points of satisfaction. Now there are other stone items, namely the monkey, the rooster, and the rat, that are part of sets, with the monkey and the rooster being partners with the foreman again for the last 2 building type, the yellow and the purple. And then we have the stone rat, which can be partnered with the local administrator for a 20% boost to peasantry. Now this is not so well designed, because if you want this bonus, you're looking for a administrator to take this item, but instinct doesn't really help administrators very much. For administrators, you're really looking for resolve or expertise for population growth or discounts on buildings. So this is one of those awkward items that's not very well designed, but we won't judge too harshly since it is a very simple, refined item, really meant to complement the local administrator. Then moving on, we have 2 very special stone accessories. Now, these special ones will be included in our tier list because they provide something additional to just instinct and satisfaction. As you can see, the stone statue of Confucius here provides 6 morale for melee cavalry and own army. Now, this is nice because you have an instinct item, which is good for armies, with a boost that's relevant to the own army, in this case, morale for melee cavalry. Then you have Ceremonial Stone Axe, which is our first exceptional item or silver tier item. And you can see here, you have 8 points of instinct, 8 points of satisfaction, and most importantly, 2 really powerful bonuses in 5% melee damage for all melee cavalry and 5% melee damage for all melee infantry. So all the yellow cavalry, as well as all the purple infantry, can get 5% melee damage. So this is a pretty good bonus considering its own army. So technically you can even stack these. So if you have 3 generals in the army, you can stack this 3 times for a nice 15% boost. And obviously instinct being a combat related stat, as it will boost your general's own melee attack, it complements the setup very nicely. Now, as for the set bonus, it's where this becomes disappointing, and we won't talk too much about the set bonus because with preservation, you have the Master Craftsman, which provides some sort of faction-wide industry, I believe. And then you get the bonus of being an administrator. So you have 3 different setups on the same item. You have the faction-wide from Master Craftsman, you have the administrator from the building upkeep of the set, and the military focus of the item. So I think we should just really look at this item by itself, and you get a pretty nice military item out of this Ceremonial Stone Axe. And that's going to wrap up our stone as we move on to wooden accessories. We have the favorite of the meme community, the wooden dog, wooden fish, and wooden ox. And we have 4 points of resolve, 4 points satisfaction. Nothing too crazy about these. And we move on to iron, which is the refined version. These are associated with expertise. You have 6 points expertise and 6 points satisfaction for the archer, sickle, and the snake. Now, the most expensive material in the game is the jade. And the jade accessories are associated with cunning, except for one very special item. The jade horseman somehow is associated with instinct. So this is a very special case, as you see +8 cunning, +8 satisfaction for all the other items. And the set bonuses here are pretty special too. The Jade Archer combos very nicely with the Tycoon for own army boost of 25% range damage, which is actually quite huge. And the Shadow Runner will partner up with the Jade Horseman for 30 points of charge bonus for the own army, which is a nice bonus to have, especially if you're playing Telltale's faction, as you do start out with the Shadow Runner. Then moving on, we have 4 more items here. Jade Rooster, Jade Statue of Confucius, Jade Sickle, and Jade Snake. Now, these are all 8 points of cunning, 8 points of satisfaction. The Jade Statue of Confucius is interesting as it's similar to the other Statue of Confucius that we saw earlier, also 6 points of morale for melee cavalry. Now here you have a cunning version, which isn't bad because the bonus is for own army, so if you put this on a strategist, as long as you have melee cavalry in the whole army, you still get the bonus. Now there are 2 set bonuses here as well. Jade Sickle can produce 25% extra food for the commandery, and Jade Snake can reduce construction time by 1 if combo with the builder, which also has the -1 effect, so overall you're getting -2 turn construction. Now both of these provide cunning, so for administrators it's not ideal, but some strategists do become both administrators as well as army strategists, so that could fit in nicely, but you're going to be giving up on some other better accessory items for administrators to get these benefits. Now moving on, we have the yellow turban accessory. Now these 4 items here, I have not personally seen in the game, and I have about 1800 hours in the game. Now granted, most of those hours were not spent playing yellow turbans, and I believe these items were designed in the base game, and they were there before even the Mandate of Heaven, so I can only assume these items were designed to originally accompany the Yellow Turban DLC, the very first one, the pre-order bonus with Wang Shao, Gong Du, and He Yi. But I have only played 1 full campaign of them and have never seen these items. So maybe they're in the game, but I just never seen them. Or perhaps they're like those crafter followers that they were implemented but never activated for the game. But regardless, I found these in the pack folders, so we will talk about them a little bit. You have the refined Old Master, which obviously would be Lao Tzu here, one of the earliest Taoist symbols. You get minus 5% corruption and no stat boost, so that definitely holds it back a little bit. But minus 5% corruption is decent. It is weaker here because it is a ministered commandery, so it's a local effect, not a faction-wide effect. If it was a faction-wide effect, it would be a lot better. Then we have General of the Land, which is a +4 resolve, +4 cunning item. So you're getting 8 points of stat on a refined item. So technically you're getting more stat than usual. 25% food production is so-so, and no satisfaction boost, which might work against you in the early game for harder difficulties, but for Yellow Turban characters, I believe once you roll into the mid and late game and you level up their ascension level, the satisfaction really isn't too much of an issue. So it's okay if these items are designed for Yellow Turbans and they don't provide satisfaction. Otherwise, they are definitely lacking a little bit in that category compared to all the other accessories. Then General of the People is +4 resolve, +4 instinct, and 6 points of satisfaction. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's like a typical refined item, 6 points of stat, 6 points of satisfaction, except for it has 2 extra points, but nothing else special going on for it. The Great Teacher, 4 points of expertise, 4 points of authority, +4 public order in local commandery if you're the administrator. And that kind of wraps up these 3 items. They're kind of average, and they meant to represent the 3 Zhang brothers as they were titled General of the Land, General of the People, and Great Teacher. So Zhang Bao was the General of the Land or General of the Earth. As you can see in the flavor text, Zhang Liang was General of the People, and Zhang Jiao was General of the Heaven, but he was referred to as the Great Teacher, so these are the items in the game representing them. So that's why they're kind of included in the Yellow Turban DLC, as the 3 brothers will be dead, and these will be kind of altar used statues. Then we have 3 Yellow Turban items that are indeed in the game and are quite powerful, and they're the 3 books, once again representing Earth, Heaven, and People. And they provide very strong bonuses, and they can be acquired in all your Yellow Turban campaigns because there are missions for them. And to get these, you simply finish the mission and you get a book for each of the missions when playing the Yellow Turban DLC. And the Book of the Earth will give you 10 points of resolve, 10 points of authority, 8 points of satisfaction on the character using it. And for administrators, or actually in this case, local commandery bonus, you don't have to be an administrator. You just have to be standing in the commandery, or doing an assignment in the commandery, or being the administrator. You would just have to be present. And if you're present, you're giving the local commandery +4 points of public order and 30% food production. Book of the Heaven, 10 points of expertise, 10 points of cunning, 8 points of satisfaction, and then also a local commandery bonus that's very powerful. 10% for all character experience gains for all characters in the local commandery. So this is a great bonus. And then 5% income from all sources, which would typically be an administrator bonus, but in this case, you just have to have the character standing in there. It doesn't have to be on the administrator, but it can be. And then also minus 10% corruption. And then Book of the People, 10 points of cunning, 10 points of authority, 8 points of satisfaction, 3k population growth in local commandery. Once again, keyword local commandery, not administered. And you also get encourage on the general that's holding the book. So this is more of a combat type of usage. Even though encourage is not super strong, maybe it's a defensive item, you give this to your administrator so they can defend your commandery, also giving it population bonus. Authority and cunning doesn't really fit in this narrative. You only get the resolve and expertise in the other 2 books. So these are interesting items. The bonuses is very varied, but it's all very powerful. And since you can guarantee these items, I believe these are very, very strong items for accessories. And then you have the non-mana accessories. These were introduced in the latest The Furious Wild DLC. And you definitely see this power creep in the game. Because if you look at the first item, a refined item, Garlic Leaf Fragrance, 10 points of resolve. We already established that refined item should be around 6. So you're giving over stats to these items. No satisfaction bonus, that's a drawback, but you do get 5 points of military supplies in own army and 5% replenishment. The replenishment is very powerful, and the supplies can be very powerful, especially if you're playing a bandit faction who is using loot in place of military supply, and it would be applied just the same way as military supplies in the game. So these items would technically provide 5 extra loot per turn for your armies. The key thing here is the extra stat and the really high replenishment rate. Then you have Flying Dagger, which once again, exceptional item, so silver tier, 10 points of instinct, so this is a little bit more than the 8 point, but still a little bit extra, and 10% extra melee damage. So really this is meant to magnify how strong your general is. Both instinct as well as the bonus will both increase melee damage, as that's what instinct does for your general, as well as decrease the recruitment cost. So there's a little nugget there as well. A pretty good item. Not as strong as the Garlic Leaf Fragrance in my opinion though. And then you have Mulu's Bell. So this is a gold unique item that's obviously given to King Mulu, who commands his animals. Now, since he is a faction leader, you do get the 10 points authority, which is nice. And 10 points is probably on the low end for the gold items, as multiple gold items provide anywhere from even 20 or 30 points of stats. But what's really powerful about this item is the 15 points of morale in own territory for all allied armies and local commandery. So technically this is a local commandery bonus, where as long as the general who's holding this item is in the local commandery, all allied armies in the commandery will receive 15 points of extra morale. And that's actually huge, especially if you consider that you're using this mainly on Nanman Force, which might suffer from some morale weaknesses. With 15 points, which is unheard of since the morale nerfs, because it went from the typical 10 points boost to like 3 point boost for most abilities. Here we have the item that's giving 15 point boost, so it's massive. And that's kind of what makes this item strong, as you can spam low tier units and keep the morale high so they can maximize their combat capabilities. Then moving on, we're going to go with some theme. And here, these 4 items I'm going to call the Scholar Accessories, because we have the Common Feather Fan, as well as Zhuge Liang's Crane Feather Fan, as they are favorites of strategists. And then we have a very nice looking porcelain cup, as well as a calligraphy set. So Feather Fan here provides no stat, it's a common item, typically should provide about 2 points, but in this case we have no stats, but 4 points of satisfaction, which is nice. And you get 3 points of morale for militia units. Oh, I take it back. I think common items are 4 points of stats normally. Sometimes we see 2 points on things like herdsmen and such for followers, but for accessories, it's 4 points. But we don't have any stats on this. We just have 3 points of morale for militia unit for own army. So technically, if you gather up 3 of these fans, give them out to your generals, you can get 9 points of morale. Not massive. But as you can see, this is an example of that morale nerf that we saw patches ago, where it all dropped very low, and that's why Mulu's Bell, being 15 point, is actually quite strong. And then you have the Crane Feather Fan. This is Zhuge Liang's item. When he spawns, he will have this item. Now the AI might take it away from him, but typically it's on him. You get 10 points of cunning, 10 points of satisfaction, 25% range damage for crossbow units in your own army. Now this is difficult to judge because there's a couple things involved here. Damage for crossbow is mainly armor piercing. This boost is actually for the base damage. So it's not going to increase it by a ton, although 25% is no small amount, so it's still decent. But crossbow in general depends heavily on their firing rate and range, and there has been multiple patches that has changed those figures. So I don't know what the future holds, but in general, this is a decent item. You wouldn't hate this at all, and you're guaranteed to get it if you get Zhuge Liang. So I would say this is strong, but just be mindful of that. You could have balance changes to the crossbow unit as a whole, therefore this item could become stronger or weaker depending on that. Then for the Porcelain Cup, we have 8 points of expertise, 8 points satisfaction, plus 5 reserve for Minister Commandery. The bonus is actually pitiful. Reserves largely useless in the game, but just having 8 points of expertise is definitely a good boost. For a silver item, you wouldn't really hate it. And no one would drink tea with this cup if you read the flavor text. This is called Jue, I believe, and it's used to drink wine. Anyhow, we have calligraphy set going on. This would be what's called Wenfang Sibao, except for it's missing one of the 4 pieces for calligraphy set. So you have the brush or the pen, which is what you see in the slender figure going across. Behind it, the big white plate-looking thing is called a yantai, and it's used to hold the ink. And you're supposed to dissolve the ink on it to write. And the little black piece there should be the ink itself. And then you have what I think they're trying to draw is a paper holder, or maybe the stick that you use to dissolve the ink. I'm not sure what they're trying to draw, but there's the essential piece missing from a typical calligraphy set, and that is paper, which is very precious during this time. But anyhow, it gives a whopping 18 points of authority and only 6 points of satisfaction, which I'm okay with, because usually for authority items, they're going on your leader, and leaders don't need satisfaction, but heirs do, so perhaps this is a better heir item. It would have been better if we didn't get any satisfaction and got some better faction-wide bonuses, because 18 authority is not that great. It's a nice concentration boost, but it's just not very strong. It could be a lot stronger. I'd rather have something like, the 25% range damage for crossbows from the Crane Feather Fan. That's a great boost. It had great interesting gameplay. Just flat authority doesn't really do it for me. Anyhow, continuing on, we have what's called the terrain accessories, or I'm going to call them the terrain accessories, because this kind of measures what the Art of War called 天时地利, right? 天 means the sky, 时 means time, 地 means terrain, and 利 means advantages, or in this case means manpower advantages. And this is the 4 factor you want to consider before you wage war. And these items kind of does that for you. You have the water clock, which measures time. You have the celestial sphere, which measures the heaven. You have the seismograph, which measures the earth. And you have the south pointing chariot, which is a compass. So if you think of a compass in modern day, you're thinking about a north pointing compass. What the south pointing chariot is, it's basically the same thing. Because if you think about it, when your compass is pointing north, it's actually also pointing south. As long as the magnetic poles are aligned, when you point north, the other side of your arrow is technically pointing south. And for Chinese culture, who actually invented the compass, the typical convention is a south pointing method. And the Chinese character for this will be called 指南车, or for compass would be called 指南针. And in the middle character here, 南 means south. So for compasses, it's all south pointing, at least for Chinese cultures. And this chariot would be one of these chariots that has the mechanics of a compass installed on it. So when your army marches, you can use this chariot as a compass in the army. So instead of having a pocket compass, which wasn't invented at this time, you had this cart that's moving with the army, and you had this figure there, or usually it's not this decorative, but in this is the case, they're making it very decorative. You have a guy pointing south, so the army knows where they're going. The water clock is basically using the flow of water with a stick to measure time. So as the water slowly flows out of the cup, the stick would drop, and there will be markings on the stick telling you what time it is. The celestial sphere obviously measures the star alignment to kind of see what season it is based on the position of the stars in the sky. And then the seismograph was invented, I would say, around this time, but earlier than this time in the Han Dynasty. Someone named Zhang Heng would actually invent this first seismograph, which actually kind of looked like this. It's very decorative. It was invented for the palace, and it had 8 dragons. Each of the mouth held a ball, and when there was an earthquake in the direction of the dragon facing that direction, the ball would drop out of its mouth into, this would be Chan on the bottom. It's a mythical creature, not saying the dragon isn't, and it would catch the ball, and that would signal that there was earth shaking in that direction. And this is the earliest seismograph during this period. All right, so to not make this into a Let's Talk Lore series, let's just talk about what these item does in game. We talked about the water clock as a timekeeping device, but in game it's 4 points satisfaction, 3% replenishment on army. Not bad, because replenishment is actually highly valued. Celestial Sphere, 8 points of expertise, 8 points of cunning, so double stat, and then 8 points of satisfaction. Pretty good, because you're getting 2 stats, and they're both combat related. Cunning for some extra ammo, and expertise for melee evasion. Seismograph, 10 points of resolve, minus 10% construction cost, plus 10 satisfaction. Not bad. South Pointing Chariot, 10 points authority, 10 points satisfaction, 15 military supplies for own army. This is probably best for bandit armies, as I said, because for general armies, military supply right now in the game, it's not super useful and it's not super lacking. You could easily get 15 military supplies per turn just by having high cunning, so it's not a great bonus. And in terms of set bonuses, Water Clock can be combined with the Astronomer, and you get 5% campaign movement, which is amazing. And the Astronomer is not a super rare item. I believe it's only refined. So in this case, you can get 5% campaign movement and 3% replenishment, which is a great combination if your general happen to have both reach and flexibility. So you get up to 30% campaign movement range and 8% replenishment just by using a refined and common item. Knowledge of the Heaven combines the Diviner with the Celestial Sphere to give your faction-wide character 10% character experience. Not really good, considering that we mentioned the spears play better for combat characters, and if you're looking for faction-wide stuff, you're probably looking for authority, which this does not provide. But if you just throw away the item set by itself, 16 points of stat, very good combination. Then the Seismograph has a combination with the Professor, increasing food production by 25%. This obviously is a ministered item, and for the administrator, this is pretty good. 10 points of resolve on the item itself. You get cost discount, which means a lot of expertise technically, and 25% extra food. So this will be great in food producing commanderies with some sort of industry income as well, because you get the construction cost discount for going tall, and then you also get the extra food to sustain yourself. Then we have some status items. These are the Jade Imperial Seal, the King of Jade Ge, and the Blade of the Seven Gem. There's really no good place to fit these, so I kind of slapped them together. You get authority points for the seal, 25 prestige. That's really good for early game because you're hoping to boost your rank to unlock different features. You get 8 points of satisfaction faction-wide, 3 morale when defending faction-wide. That's the nerf we mentioned already. But still good because it's faction-wide, so all your defending troop will get the 3 morale. King of the Jade Ge is a decorative Ge, which is a weapon. It's similar to Zi without the pointy head. And you get the 10 points of authority, 10 points of satisfaction, minus 10% corruption faction-wide. Very powerful. Blade of the Seven Gem. This is the fabled creation of Romance of Three Kingdom. Qi Xing Bao Dao, I believe is what it's called. And it's a little dagger. And the blade is designed for Cao Cao to go assassinate Dong Zhuo. Cao Cao actually borrowed it from someone, saying that he will go assassinate Dong Zhuo, but at the last moment when he saw Lu Bu, he chickened out and then fled. Obviously, the whole story is made up, and this blade doesn't exist. But it's called 7 gems because there are 7 gems on the hilt, as you can see there. And it provides 10 points of instinct, 10 points of satisfaction, and 15% melee damage for melee infantry or army. So it's quite a powerful army-wide boost. And the instinct also kind of reinforce that. So this is obviously a great item. All 3 of these are amazing items for you to get. Obviously, the one that's most consistently going to be in people's game is the Imperial Jade Seal. The other 2 is quite hard to see, but I've seen them a couple times, especially with the Blade of the 7 Gems. They has appeared in some campaigns. And then moving on, we have the chest, the tribute chest of Shi Xie's faction. This is introduced during the Fierce Wild DLC, or technically the free DLC for Shi Xie, as this is something that he can earn with his faction-wide mechanic. And there are 6 chests in total. We're going to look at them 3 at a time. We're going to talk about how strong these are relative to each other, as they are used in quite a special manner. You can trade these chests as refined items. So after the item nerf, they're not worth very much. I believe 2.2 in diplomacy. But you can also equip them on a character. And once you place them on a character for the next 20 turns or 4 years, they can't remove it. But you get the active bonus for that item. So starting with the commander's chest, you get 15 points of melee evasion, 10% recruitment cost discount, 10 morale, and 10% melee attack for own retinue. So this obviously is a military focused one, and the bonuses are quite good. no matter what type of unit you have, assuming they're not range, because it's all mainly melee. You get morale. It's cheaper for you to recruit them. 10% melee attack rate, and 15 points of melee evasion. Of these, the morale and the melee evasion are the strongest. The melee attack rate's not huge, because typically we're looking at 20 points for a fast unit, maybe 30 points. 3 points extra, it's not going to be a huge difference. And the recruitment cost is only going to happen once. If you have this chest on character before they have a retinue, you save 10% for a 6 unit, which you can easily do with some swapping of titles, or perhaps using some instinct. So that's not super strong. But overall, not bad. I would say this is an average chest. And then the Diplomat chest. So if your character is Lord of Virtue or Faction Leader, Lord of Virtue meaning you are a Yellow Turban Leader, you have the benefit of boosting diplomatic relationships with all faction by 15 points. So this item is bad, in my opinion. If the restriction was not just faction leader, but faction wide, as in Prime Minister and heirs included, then this could be amazing. Because when you have the Imperial Court, you have 7 such positions. And if you can stack this 7 times, you can get a 105 point boost with all factions on the map. That's powerful. But in this case, you have to place it on your leader. So in hindsight, you're also giving up on accessory slot, which there are tons of good items that can go on your leader. So think about giving up an Imperial Jade Seal, for example, which would be, obviously an amazing item, or even a Discourse of the State, 5% corruption reduction, very simple authority item. Once you place this chest on there, the next 20 turn, all you're getting is 15 points of diplomacy, which is equivalent to not trespassing, because if you trespass someone, it's 15 points away. So it's not good. You can't stack this because it's leader only. So this is the chest I recommend you not getting. Then we have the Economist chest. This is for local commandery. So this one is stackable because you don't need this on the administrator. You can have the general standing there and they can provide 10 points of public order and 15% income from all sources. So this would be the tall player's dream because you could stack a really powerful commandery with, let's say, 2 generals with this. That's 30% boost to all income sources. Let's say 3 generals. 3 generals play a better example because with 3 generals, you can get 1 army basically. You get 30 points of public order, which will eat out all the population disorder. Max population disorder is 30 points. So that way you have no disorder, no rebellions, and then you get 45% additional income, which is equivalent to 3 administrators because administrators has a base increase of 15%. So now you're looking at a total of 60% boost off of the 200% boost you're getting from population. So this is a powerful one because you can stack it. And then you have the Industrialist chest. This one's for construction and replenishment. So it's kind of interesting combination. Also local commandery, and you get -2 construction time. So local commandery is nice because you can move this character around. Imagine you're on the borders of 2 commanderies. You have this guy standing in one commandery, do your build order, move him to the next one, and then do your build order, and repeat. So technically, 1 item here can serve 2 or even 3 if you can find a commandery with an intersection point between 3 and just have 1 general kind of flip around. And the 15% replenishment is also super strong because you can heal weakened armies in any of the 3 commanderies. So just have the guy circle around, and since you're most likely playing tall with a lot of vassals, you can pretty much maintain 15% replenishment in your commandery of need every turn. And you only need to create 1 of these, so this is even more efficient than our last chest. Then we have the Lord's chest. This one's for characters. You get 15 points to all attributes. So this is your authority, your expertise, your cunning, your instinct, your resolve. 25 points of satisfaction, and 50% character experience. So this is obviously good because all the bonuses are nice, but you're really measuring how much your faction mechanic points that you trade in for these are worth to you. If you can generate a ton of these, this might be more efficient for you to use to boost a character than, say, a title, which can boost satisfaction, or other means. But it's temporary, 20 turns, it needs refreshing. So you have tons of extra stuff, and your economy is in tip-top shape and you don't really need help there, this will be a good way to boost some of your generals to make them even stronger. Lastly, we have the Trader's Chest. This one, once again, is terrible because once again, it's restricted to your faction leader, so it's not stackable, and the only bonus is 15% trade influence, which is not worth very much. Even if you're playing tall with vassals and like 10 trade routes, this is not worth anything. You can easily use one of the new follower items, the Representationist, to match this with even better stats, not taking one of the item slots. Tycoons, merchants, they're all better than this. So I would never get this either. So that wraps it up for all the chests. And as we move on, we have books. There are tons of books. Most of the accessories are books. We're going to do these by rarity. So starting off with a refined, we have Book of the Mountain and Sea, Book of Song, Classic of Filial Piety, and Discourse of the State. So since these are refined items, we're going to see about 6 points of stats and 6 points satisfaction. The Book of the Mountains and Seas is a mythical book. The book exists, but it's a mythology book. It describes the land outside of China. So it's written in ancient time. So this describes mountains and seas as faraway kingdoms with mythical creatures, talking about all the mythology creatures, Nighttail Fox, you have dragons, you have turtles that are huge and move cities on its back, as well as other interesting sites, mountains and seas in faraway land. In Chinese, this will be called Shanhai Jing, and this gives you 10% campaign movement range, which does not say own army or when commanding. So I usually assume it's own army when it doesn't say. I could be wrong. It could be just going onto the character. Therefore, it's technically own commanding. So if it's own commanding, then it's restricted to really just the strategist. But it still works because strategist does have reach and you get the cunning boost. And then Book of Songs, you get 6 points of morale for own army. Not much to say there. Nothing crazy about the classic of Filial Piety, except for because you understand Filial Piety, which is xiao, which is how you treat your parents, how you treat your superiors, being dutiful to them. You have more satisfaction. So instead of 6 points, you get 10 points. Discourse of the State, great item. 5% faction-wide corruption reduction. Very essential for wide kingdoms. And then in terms of set bonuses, Tamer of the Earth from Book of Mountain and Sea, get 10 points of military supply. So you like to travel far, you travel farther, as well as get supplies on your journey. Then Discourse of the State and Classic of Filial Piety also has set bonuses. You can do the Philosopher with the Classic. You get 4 points of public order. Very well designed item because Philosopher gets faction-wide bonus for satisfaction, and the faction-wide set bonus is also faction-wide, 4 points of public order. Discourse of the State is the weird set. You get the 5% corruption reduction. Law Enforcer is a faction-wide 2 points of public order. So those match, but their combined set bonus is a minister bonus, which blows my mind because you will never be able to use a set bonus with the item bonus, so you will probably never create this combination. But individually, they're good. 2 public order and 5% corruption reduction. Not bad at all. Then we have 4 more books. We have multiple 4 more books, so let's keep going. We have Mozi, 6 Secret Teaching, Strategies of the Warring State, the 9 chapters of the Mathematical Arts. Once again, 6 points of their stats, 6 points of satisfaction. And for Mozi, you get 4 points of public order for Administrator. You get 15% chance of ambushing for own army for 6 Secret Teaching. Strategies of the Warring State is a bit lacking because it gives guerrilla deployment to own retinue, which is an absolute waste because for strategists who would typically use this item, they have a skill in their skill tree that gives exactly this. So this is wasted. I think this item's terribly designed. The 9 chapters of the Mathematical Arts, 4 points of reserve, also quite useless. In terms of set bonuses, we have the Forge Master with Mozi, increasing the rate of wall and settlement damage during sieges. This is a reference to Mozi himself, which is a philosopher similar to Confucius, who was active during the Warring States. They designed siege engines. So they were engineers. They were a school of philosophy that were engineers. So therefore, you have the increased damage to wall and settlement damage. 6 Secret Teaching can be combined with Military Instructor to get another 25% of ambushing for a total of 40%. Not bad if you're hoping to specialize in ambushing armies. And then the 9 chapters of mathematical arts can be combined with the merchant for 25% trade influence. So that's a good bonus in combination with the merchant, which also boosts trade influence. Then we have more books, The 3 Strategies of the Duke of the Yellow Rock, 魏老子, Wu Zi, and 庄子. So Zi is a type of reference to a master. So you have Kongzi, which is Confucius. In the West, we just call him Confucius, but technically he will be Kongzi. So Wei Lao Zi would be similar to Wei Lao, and then Wu Zi is Wu, and then Zhuangzi is referencing someone whose last name was Zhuang. Anyways, so with the 3 strategies of Duke of Yellow Rock, you get the 6 points of authority, 6 points satisfaction, 5% income from all sources, which is wonderful. Similar to the corruption reduction, any type of faction-wide economy boost I typically enjoy very much. Wei Laozi provides 5 points of military supplies, same as Wu Zi, except for they provide different stats, resolve versus instinct. Zhuangzi has a very interesting boost of 5% revenue upkeep, which is a nice item to have if you are saving money in the early game, because for some expensive retinues, you can get up to about 3,000. So a nice 5% boost would save you about 150. That's a small amount, but if you have the item, why not? In terms of set bonuses, the 3 strategies can be combined with a gold follower item to get another 10% corruption faction-wide for the Hand of the King. Very powerful, if you can get the gold follower item. Military law can be triggered. Once you have military expert, you get +2 starting rank for all recruit. So this is one of those micro-intensive items. If you want to use this to artificially boost the starting rank of your units, you can move this set item around when you do recruiting. You can probably recruit 2 sets of retinues per turn if you plan accordingly. But this means if you want a full army with this advantage, you're probably looking to have 2 turns of recruitment, which means you're going to end up delaying your mustering, and the timing is going to be weird. Maybe only use this on your strategist to get some high-level siege weapons at the beginning. Aside from that, it's not really useful, but you can maybe get small advantages from this. Then Wu Zi can get -1 mustering turn for the same item combo. These two are very similar, but the mustering is also not that strong. And you will be giving up all your recruitment bonus because you can't just artificially give -1 mustering after the army has been recruited, because mustering is triggered at the beginning of recruitment. Then for exceptional books, we're upgrading to the silver tier. We have Art of War, Book of Ceremonies, Book of Change, and Book of Rites. So Art of War is actually surprisingly disappointing in the game because it gives 8 points of authority, 8 points of satisfaction, and unlocks 3 formations. That's it. That's really bad, because if you're using this item on commander and the commander's in the army, it already unlocks these formations. If you have a strategist in the army, it already unlocks these formations. Maybe if it unlocks special formations, it would be better. But in this case, just very typical formations: circle, hollow square, and wedge. So pretty bad item. Book of Ceremonies, 8 points authority, 8 points satisfaction, +4 public order for administer commandery. Not bad. Book of Changes, 8 points of cunning, 8 points satisfaction, 15% chance of ambushing, and 30% chance of avoiding ambush. So this introduces a stat that many people are not aware of. Every army has a chance to avoid ambush. So when you see you have a 100% ambush chance, it doesn't mean it's 100%, because the enemy has a chance to avoid ambush, and they are subtracted before they are applied. So if you have 100%, they have 30, then you really only have 70% of triggering it. So if they walk by your ambush army, don't be so surprised. Book of Rites, 8 points of authority, 8 points of satisfaction, 2 points of public order faction-wide. Once again, not bad. And for set bonuses, the Art of War can redeem itself by a little bit by combining with the military instructor for 5% own army campaign movement range. Still a bad item. Book of Changes can be combined with a scholar for 10% character experience. Not bad. And then we have 3 more silver books. Rites of Zhou, and the Methods of Sima. So Uryat here is a dictionary that somehow provides trade influence, which I guess makes sense, because if you think about communication, the better you can communicate, the better you have trade. I guess it works out. Except for this is not like a translation dictionary, it's just a straight dictionary. It's a first compiled dictionary of the Chinese language, codified. A very impressive book. Rites of Zhou. It's the traditions from the Zhou dynasty. 10% extra income from peasantry. Can be combined to make a really nice set bonus, which we'll talk about very soon. Methods of Sima has 8 points cutting, 8 points satisfaction, 10 points of military supplies, which is great for bandits. Then for set bonuses, you have Commander of the Masses with Rites of Zhou. 25% faction-wide upkeep discount, plus 2 public order, plus 4% replenishment for own army, and the public order's local commandery. This is quite powerful because both Rite of Zhou and the Jade Sculptor are silver items. So you can stack these. So even if you're not playing Liu Bei, you can get free militia units if you have 4 sets of these, which might sound a bit crazy to get, but you can probably get at least 1 set in a game if it goes long enough, so why not 2? So it can be an interesting strategy. Now this obviously will be really good if you roll it in the early game. That's when militias are most relevant, and also their replenishment will become very good. And even the public order as local bonus would also be very good, because you can have this on your leader on the field and still have all these bonus active at the same time. Now obviously if you want the 10% from peasantry on the item itself, and the Jade Sculptor is 10% commerce for administrator, you would definitely want this on administrator. But if you have this on administrator, you don't get the 25% upkeep from militia units. So it's a trade-off. If you don't have the set bonus, just the item itself for administrator is decent. If you have the set bonus, it becomes a viable playstyle for your faction. The Method of Sima gives you 6 points of, or 6k population growth per county in a Minister Commander. So that's actually pretty good. Military supply is not so good, but this 6k is pretty decent, even though there is just a follower item with 8k population growth, but we're not going to compare it with that. Then we have gold books, and that's the Book of Documents, Hua Tuo's Manual, Book of Concealing Methods, and Nu She Bi Fa. So Book of Documents here is 10 points of authority, 10 points of satisfaction. That's very typical. 10 points is kind of the standard. 6 points of public order for a minister commandery. Not good, not bad. I mean, for gold, probably not good. Hua Tuo's Manual, 30 points. Authority, you get expertise, resolve, cunning, and they get 10 points of satisfaction. So this is just a stat book, and all the stats are combat relevant. You get melee evasion, you get health, you get ammo, and then satisfaction on top of that. Book of Concealing Method, 10 points of cunning, 10 points of satisfaction. Guerrilla Deployment, quite wasteful. It's similar to the other item we talked about earlier that gives guerrilla deployment and cunning. It's a bad combination. Nu She Bi Fa, no stats, but it's a guaranteed spawn for Liu Chong's faction. You get 10% range damage for crossbow. Now, even though I talked bad about crossbow damage earlier, about the Crane Feather fan, this is different because Liu Chong's faction get this item, and Liu Chong's faction has Chen Royal Guards. So, it's an amazing item because you're getting 10% range damage or 18 units of Chen Royal Guards, because you know you're spamming them because they are godly for Liu Chong. And then moving on, we can talk about the set bonuses. Ancient Sight for Book of Documents with Confucian Sage, giving you another 10 points of satisfaction faction-wide. Pretty good. Vital Spirits, if you have both Hua Tuo and Hua Tuo's Manual, you get 5% extra replenishment for own army. I feel like that's too low. Why not give him 50? Just the army with Hua Tuo and Hua Tuo's Manual have maximum replenishment. I feel like that's better, but the game has only 5%. And with that, we're done with all the overviews. These are all the 81 accessory items, excluding the bows. And now we're gonna rank the 52 of them that have some interesting aspect that are not just like a clay dog that has, 6 points of sack, 6 points of satisfaction. So let's hop back to the tier list and give these a proper ranking. Alrighty, so here we are back on the tier list, and we have all the 52 that we want to rank listed here. And we're gonna start with the S tier this time. Let's start with the good ones. And the items that we're going to slap up there first are going to be the Yellow Turban Scrolls. Why not? We're going to throw up the Book of the Earth, the Book of Heaven, and Book of People. And these are up there because they provide 20 points of stats each. Satisfaction on these, I think 8 points only, which is typically a little bit lower than 10 points for gold items. but they all have a variety of bonuses, and most of the bonuses are local commandery, which gives you a lot of flexibility on who can use the item. So these all deserve a spot in the S tier. And instead of just slapping gold items up there, I think we can talk about something that's very special. And that's the new item, the Garlic Leaf Fragrance. So this also deserves to be the S tier because you get a lot of stats for a refined item, which kind of talks about how rare it is. You get 10 points. It is a campaign spawn. There are events in the game that actually spawn this item, especially when you're in the Nanman land. So it's kind of almost guaranteed to see in campaign, and most Nanman generals will have this for you to capture and receive. So you can easily get multiple copies of this. You get 10 points of resolve for it for a refined item, which we mentioned. It's great for administrators, great for armies, and most of all, you get 5 supply points, which are good for bandits, and 5 replenishment, which is good for everyone. And both of those bonuses are own army bonuses, so they're stackable as well. So you can get 3 of these, that's 15% replenishment, 15 supplies, and resolve for everyone, which at the worst is extra health for your generals. So I think that's very deserving of an S rank. And then if we're talking about Nanman items, I think Mulu's Bell will also be up here. You get the 10 points of authority, not 18 points, I'm thinking about calligraphy set, but you also get the 15 points of morale, which is actually huge. And it's also for all allied armies in local commandery, so it's really encouraging to spam cheap and mass amount of units with low morale, and you artificially boost it up with this, and you can swarm enemies while you command your precious elephants to crush anyone else left alive. Then also good leader items, obviously King of the Jade Ge, as well as Imperial Jade Seal. I don't think we need to talk too much about them. They're just all very powerful. 10% corruption reduction. You get all the bonuses, prestige, satisfaction faction-wide, defensive morale bonuses, all on the Jade Seal. And then we can also throw the Blade of the 7 Gems. You get very good army-wide melee attack for melee infantry. Also 10 points of instinct for the character that holds this. I think that's also very, very strong and deserving of the S tier. And then also deserving of the S tier, I think we want to throw up one, the chest, the industrialist chest. This is a great early game chest, mainly because you get potentially -2 turn construction time and 15% replenishment for multiple commanderies because it's a local commandery effect. Therefore, you can kind of move your character around to boost this effect on multiple commanderies at the same time. So I think it's quite powerful, it's quite flexible, and definitely one of the chests you should definitely keep your eye out for. And then we can also throw some books up there. There are some powerful books. Let's say Discourse of the State. At the worst, this is 5% corruption faction-wide, and that's enough said. That's basically what you want from your 7 Imperial seat positions. You want to somehow boost your corruption to -100% faction-wide. Therefore, you can expand as much as you want without ever incurring any bit of corruption. That guarantees you have best economy possible. Therefore, it's going to help your campaign out in the long run because of that. And speaking of reducing corruption, we can also add the 3 strategies of Duke of Yellow Rock. Now, this is a little bit different because this is faction-wide income, 5% on the book itself, but if you can combine it with the gold follower item, it's a big if, it's another 10% corruption faction-wide, and that's super strong. The Hand of the King combo is very good, so having one of these books is also very important. And I think that might do it. Oh, one more item. Heavy stat, Hua Tuo's Manual. 30 points of stat, the most stat boost you can get from any accessory item. And you also get satisfaction on top of that. And if you can complete the combo with Hua Tuo, 5% replenishment. So I think that's going to do it for the S tier there. And moving on, we can move on to the A tier. And I think we can slap most of the gold items that's remaining on there, because they're not that bad. At worst, you're getting a lot of stats on them. So South Pointing Chariot, Seismograph is actually quite good. I think it's borderline S tier. Especially it's considered like a ministered item. It's well designed, but I guess we'll put it down here. It's only 10 points of stat being boosted, and it's really hard to get. I think that's the thing holding most of these back, because you're not really going to see these items in most of your campaigns. Now, items you will see, Rainfeather Fan, because Druid is going to spawn regardless of what faction you play. So this item is going to be in your games. Items you won't see, Book of Concealing Method. This one I'm actually super tempted to drop a bit lower because it provides the Guerrilla Deployment, which just doesn't make a lot of sense in my book. So I think maybe we'll put it to the B tier. It still provides a lot of stat. Maybe low A? Let's just say low A and be done with that. Calligraphy set, lots of stats, 18 points authority, very concentrated, very good air item because it also provides 6 points of satisfaction. Book of Documents, I think this one we can probably put A tier as well. It has an interesting set bonus with the Confusion Sage, which give you 10 points of satisfaction faction-wide. By itself, it's more of an administrator item. Administrator gets 6 points of public order, and then you also get the 10 points authority, 10 points of satisfaction. That's a weird combo, so it's not as strong there. But with the set bonus and the Confusion Sage, which would be a silver item, if you can get Book of Documents, you can probably get a Confusion Sage, and then at that point, you're going to get that faction-wide 10 points of satisfaction. Nusha Bifa, our last gold item, we're going to put it A. The 10% crossbow damage obviously has weaknesses because crossbows don't really specialize in base damage. But since you're guaranteed to have this for Liutron's faction, and Liutron's faction is guaranteed to spam crossbows no matter what you play, this will get a lot of value. Therefore, we're going to place it here in the A tier. Now, we can also put some not so highly ranked items up here as well. So, for example, Book of Mountain and Sea. It's 10% campaign movement range. I think that's actually worth a lot. It's a lot of quality of life, it's a lot of utility, mobility, being able to chase down enemy armies, saves you a lot of time in campaign overall, being able to strike at certain enemy positions from inside your commandery, like being on the edge, being able to reach the next commandery in one turn, not having to spend a turn wandering in enemy territory. I think those are all key benefits, and that's why it's deserving. Then in A tier, I think we can also throw in the Lord's Chest. This is the one that boosts personal stats. It's powerful because of how much stat it boosts, but it's also something I consider in terms of trade-off with other things you could get. But overall, I think it's a strong and powerful chest. And that also goes for the Economist chest, which is borderline S tier. I think this one went S tier because it's great in the early game, whereas this is good in the late game. Because you need a lot of points. You need a lot of chests. You need a lot of economy chests for this to become strong. It's 10 points of public order, 15% income from all sources, local commandery. Means you can stack this, but if you want to stack this, means you need lots of this. So that's the weakness. You need the late game to have a lot of points to get a lot of these chests. So it's not going to be S tier. This you just need one, and you move the character around, and you get the benefit all over the place. So that's where it's strong. Then, let's see, chest. We can probably also put the commander chest. No, I think commander is going to go B tier. The reason for that is you do get a lot of stats on your own retinue, but it's not all relevant stat. Recruitment 10%, only going to use it when you recruit, and then the morale's good, the evasion's good, the melee attack rate is a very, very minor thing. So I think that might do it for A. Might go to B. No, silver items. The Ceremonial Axe, very similar to Blade of the Seven Gems. So good instinct boosting item, also boosts your own army. And unlike the Blade of the Seven Gem, even though that's 15% and these are 5% for melee cavalry and melee infantry, this one being silver means it's stackable. You can have 3 of these. You can't have 3 of these. So technically, you could match the output in an army with this item. It'd just be very hard to get multiple copies of that item. And speaking of these combat ones, I think the Flying Dagger can go down here, mainly because you don't get as much stats as you think. You get 10 points of instinct, which is higher than what you typically get for silver, 8 points. No satisfaction, that's a weakness, and also 10% melee attack on only the character. So it's not the own army, so there's no stacking these. So I think there's limitations to this. But the 10 points of stats still good, and you still want to power up your generals, especially on romance mode. So I think this deserves a place in the B tier. And then continue on the B tier, we have a couple of surprise picks. And the Water Clock deserves to be up here. And the reason why Water Clock deserves to be up here is because you get the 3% replenishment for own army. And if you complete the set with the Astronomer, 5% campaign movement range. So that's a powerful combination of potentially 9% replenishment. That's a good bonus for a common item. That's surprisingly good. So don't underestimate the Water Clock, especially if you can get the set bonus. Even if you can't, it's a good item to slap on at the end of turn if your army is really injured, because you can artificially boost the army's replenishment by 9% just by having this item on the army, and just swap them out next turn at the beginning of turn for whatever bonuses for combat that you need your army to have. And it's a very flexible choice. So I think that's a good item to use. Speaking of army items, I think we can also slap Zhuangzi, which is the 5% retinue discount. I think in the early game when you're really penny pitching, this is a great item. And in the late game, you can just give it to Administrator. 6 points of expertise is definitely not bad. And then we also have items like Rite of Zhou. This book is kind of all over the place. You have 10% peasantry on the bonus itself. You have a very strong, powerful set bonus that has faction-wide effect. You have authority on it. You also have army effect like replenishment. But because it's so varied, and also because it's silver, so you can actually stack it with the set bonus, I think it deserves a pretty high rank. It's not going to be A because it's all over the place. It's not really synergized well. But each individual boost from all over the place is still quite strong. So I think we can definitely put it here. And moving on, we have, let's see, probably some more combat related ones. We can probably put both the jade sculpture as well as the stone sculpture up here. You give a pretty good morale boost to melee cavalry, which are basically the tanks of your cavalry army. They tank enemy arrow damage, they can charge pretty decently, and the key thing about these is they stack. And from these two, the stone one might be even better than the jade one because it provides some combat damage. So you can do a combination of these because they give the same exact amount of morale boost. So the jade one goes to the strategist in the army, and the stone ones goes to the other two general. That way you get the 18 points of morale boost and also the relevant combat boost for each of the unit that are involved. And then moving on, I think we can... it's hard to decide between B and C, but I can decide all the bad ones. Maybe let's slap some of the bad ones down. Diplomat's chest, 15 points of diplomatic relations with everyone, but only 15 points because only can go on leaders. You have to give up all your other benefits, so that's D. Trader's chest, 15%. That's also D. Not worth talking about. Feather fan, 3 points of morale. No stats for satisfaction. I think it's pretty bad. And let's see. Art of War, in my opinion, is garbage. It has army benefits of unlocking formations and then authority stats on top. Sure, it's 8 points of stats. I think for a lot of these items, when I say it's bad, I just think the design is terrible. But like, it's not that bad. Like, you would take 8 points of authority versus like 4 points. It's better than, you know, a clay cup, but it's not a good item. That goes for porcelain cup, which I think it's also a terrible item, being 5 reserve. But I guess this can go C because the 8 points is in expertise and the reserve is in administer commander. So design wise, it's not that bad. It's just not useful because reserve is just bad. But the 8 points of expertise can still be useful. As for these statues, the old master can go here. This one is the minus 5% corruption for administrators, which I feel is just useless and redundant because administrators provide 30 points already, and that's going to eliminate most of your need for any type of corruption reduction in those commanderies as a whole. So I don't really think you need them. And then for the other statues, I feel, I don't know, they can go D or C in my opinion. Maybe just go D because they're not really in the game. They do give 8 points of stat, which is more than refined items, but no satisfaction, which could be a big issue because for most of your items, you're trying to also boost satisfaction most of the time, and the bonuses on top of them are not that good. Like say the land, you get 25% food production, but you get resolve and cunning 4 points to resolve only. So that's only 4 points that's relevant for Administrator. And you don't really need that much food. A lot of Yellow Turban bonuses are on the skill tree, and you just need the general standing there. So I think these items are kind of redundant in a sense for them. And then let's see what else is bad. We have 9 chapters of mathematical arts, 4 reserve, and 6 cunning. That's like worse than the porcelain cup. You basically have the wrong stats with 4 reserve. Let's see, Wuzi is 6 points of instinct, military supply, and then the bonus of mustering. That's also not very good. Book of Ceremonies, probably also poorly designed. You get authority, 8 points, but then you get a minister bonus of 4 public order, which I guess is a low C, because authority is still good. Maybe you just slap this on one of your prime minister position and forget about it if you don't have better items. The bonus it's not really relevant. I guess that's the problem. Like compare that to, let's say, Uriak, right? Uriak can be ahead of it definitely because you get the same amount of authority boost, but you get 15% trade influence, which is not super good, but it's decent. It's better than this. Maybe I just slap this down here and keep this in C, because I don't think this is B level either. 15 points of authority, it's not, 15 point trade influence, it's not game changing. So I'm going to keep this a bit lower. And then Book of Change, which gives cunning, I believe. And then the ambush chance and ambush avoid chance. That's a tough call. I think I'm going to go C. It's not super useful. You have to have the effect its own army. Okay, maybe B. Low B. These are all kind of mixed. You know, nothing stand out, but yeah, low B. Maybe you can use it for an ambush army. And at the worst, it keeps your army safe from accidentally running into ambushes in case you don't pay attention during the end turn and you bump into one of those armies. So I guess we'll put it there. Book of Songs. Let's see. Book of Songs is the morale boosting one. I think C. It's not completely worthless. 6 points morale, it's not bad. Its own army, so you can stack it. I think there's value there. 6 secret teachings, similar to Book of Change, but I think maybe even better than Book of Change, because there's a set bonus where you can get 40% ambush chance. I think we'll put these right next to each other. They're kind of similar, but not really. One is just avoid and also a little bit ambush. One's pure ambush, but only if you have the set bonus. So there's definitely trade-off there as well. Now the 2 remaining silver book we have. Book of Rights. Book of Rights is the public order bonus with 8 points authority. That's actually decently designed. Probably can be top here. Obviously 2 public order is not huge, but 8 points authority, it's better than, so I guess this would be the order, right? You have public order, trade influence, authority on both. This is just expertise with a little bit of reserve. Like the stats match with what you want to use it for, but the bonus is not super strong. I think that's the theme of these items here. The Methods of Sima is a good bandit item. It's good for loot. If you want loot, you get cunning, which boosts loot. You get 10 points of military supply for own army, which boosts loot. But that's about it. And then Classic of Philippiady, I think it's actually pretty good. I think it can be up here if you can complete the set bonus. Because if you complete the set bonus, it's with the Philosopher. So you get the 10 points of faction-wide satisfaction, also 4 points of public order. The book itself gives 10 points of satisfaction, which is actually huge. It's more than the 6 typical. So if you're having satisfaction problems, this would be your solution there. And then Mozi. Mozi, it's resolve, which is good. And then the public order is good. So I think it fits like here. It's themed. The extra siege engine bonus of sieging down enemy walls is not really relevant, but overall I think the theme is good. Strategies of a Warring State, terrible book. It's the guerrilla deployment one with cunning. It's wasteful, bad design. which is why I kind of want to drop Book of Concealed Method down to B, but since it's gold, we're going to let it stay in A. And that leaves us with Will Odds. So this is the resolve item. 6 points of resolve, 6 points satisfaction. The main thing is military supplies, but there's a set bonus with military expert that allow you to start units at rank +2 rank, which is a good bonus. Just takes a lot of micro. So it's not worthless. And the resolve is actually combat relevant, also good for administrators. So I think I'm just going to slap it in C. It's decently designed, just takes a lot of microing to get full advantages of. You wouldn't want to keep this item on general, just because you kind of want to switch it around to create the most plus rank you can get if you have the set bonus with the military instructor. So that's not too difficult to get. But I think that's going to do it for us. This is going to be our final tier list for all the accessory items in the game, at least all the relevant ones. All those clay dogs didn't make the cut. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll come back next time. We'll look at all the unique armors next time, and there are tons of armors. If you thought 92 items was insane, there's actually 107 unique armors in the game right now. So there's actually tons of character art in the game, and there's tons of unique armor for us to look at. So come back next time as we'll do a tier list of that. So until then, bye.